there were points in my life where, you would, and I think a lot of women say this too, like, do great men even exist, sort of thing. And as I started to like move in accordance with that, then this man appeared out of nowhere. Like, it's ridiculous, but I feel like I could never have dreamed up this human being. Even with all the listing and the manifestation, I could never have even touched it with a 10-foot pole. The more I can let go and let God, like, for real, not something you fake to get something, like
Yeah.
for real. To me, I feel like the next phase of my life is just going to be pure magic.
Welcome back to another episode of the Live Free Lifestyle podcast. I am your host, Leah Brathwaite, and today I have a lovely guest joining me. She is a relationship mentor, an entrepreneur, a photographer, and my friend, Jennifer Hallett. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I love our conversation, so I'm very happy to be here.
I'm super excited to have a chat with you and so thrilled that you're here. And you know what? We're going to dive right into it because that's the way we do when we have our own private chats. So this is kind of like we're letting the world into our private conversations. But I want to hear a little bit more about your story and about where you started all of this from for the people who maybe don't know you as Jayla Loves on Instagram or who haven't been
Yeah.
privy to your work. So I'll start with the very first question that I ask every guest on this show. And it's, what does it mean to you to live free?
So that is such an iconic question because I think that based on how the world frames freedom today, it's usually very physical, like the tangible things that you have and allow for you to have more space and time in your life. But for me, freedom has and has always been an opportunity for me to be a rule breaking life designer.
Working life designer. That is so good. And I
Yes.
agree with that. Like the idea of freedom and the reason why I created the Live Free lifestyle is so that we have that internal freedom, the freedom to be our full expressed selves so that we can create the kind of lives that we desire. And in your case, you help women and men to create the kind of
Hmm.
relationships that they desire. And that requires this internal liberation.
Yes.
So I know a little bit about your story, but I would love to hear from you in this context. How did you come to this understanding on your own that freedom isn't necessarily like the external trappings that most of us are initially like interested in acquiring, but how did you come to this place of this internal freedom that you've discovered for yourself?
Well, the most simple way that I can quantify my experience is that I came from nothing.
Mhm.
And, on the metaphysical side, we all come from nothing, but I was literally born into what I always uh, share as being kind of a Defcon 5 environment. Who I am today is so contrastingly different from what I was born into. But what I was born into afforded me the ability to live freely and boldly because it required me to step out of my circumstances, of the way that my family viewed life, of some of the health detriments, the poverty detriments, the mental detriments. And I just kind of knew at a young age, and I can't really put a finger or a pulse on it outside of just the grace of God, truly, that it wasn't the correct way to live or be. And that really was kind of the conviction that held through some of my hardest times as a child, as a teen, as a young adult. And now how I see that is my saving grace, because I had this beautiful independence in an environment that felt so restricted. And so I realized that much of what we buy into socially, much of what is handed to us through parents, religions, teachers, even friends, or things we consume on social media, more often than not, as well intended as people may or may not be, it just creates boxes that we all kind of live into. And I just never
Mm.
liked playing that game. So
Mhm.
I did it. I did it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that. And I
Hmm.
love the fact that you were able to hold on to that thread of truth that was like in you, because I think a lot of us recognize that as children. We're like, wait, what the hell is going on here? Like, this isn't the way it works. We have such a deep divine knowing when we're young, but we
Yes.
don't have the life experience and we don't have the independence to be able to like just do what we want all the time. We have to kind of manifest our lives through our parents because they are the ones kind of in charge of our safety, and our provisions, for better or for worse. So I'm curious, like, how were you able to hold on to that? Because I remember that spirit that I had in myself as well. I think like multiple moments throughout my life, I can remember just looking around and being like, what is happening here? Like, this isn't how it's supposed to work. But it seemed
Mm-hmm.
like everybody had bought into this illusion or delusion of like the way that the world works is da 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 according to these boxes. And as a child, I'm like, this doesn't feel natural, but everybody else seems to be doing it. So, how were you able to not fall into that trap of like putting yourself in boxes and kind of succumbing to the mass indoctrination of like the way life is supposed to be?
So I believe that everybody enters into the world very uniquely. And while there were definitely hardships in my life, I realize now that that was all complementary to my understanding of life. And as a child, again, with that conviction, that has never really lost. That's never been lost in my frame. Like I've always kind of carried that. But I would say as you become an adult, the desire to be more impressionable, more liked, more validated, more seen for something kind of takes over. But I think what allowed for me to hold on to that is there were very distinct pockets throughout my life, like the time I quit my corporate job, where again, I got that feeling that what I was living and how I was living was not it. And I think it requires a very deep degree of internal relationship, which is why I'm a relationship mentor. It extends across the board, but it requires a very deep devotional understanding that, well, all of this exists. Sometimes we are just moved in ways we can't explain and no one else can quantify.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, growing up in an environment where I had more independence, not maybe to my benefit then, what that did was it allowed me to condition myself in a way where that part and my sense of adventure and deep devotion and desire to experience life in new ways was not stifled by people around me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's remained, but I can't say that throughout my life there weren't times and haven't been times where I've been stuck just like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But I always keep coming back to that thread, which is there's something beyond what we like to perceive as being control or that we're somehow in control of it all. I think that there's something more beyond that's just this inner connection that allows and affords for a more adventurous life. So it feels more
Mm-hmm.
playful to me now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know if that answered the question. I don't
Yeah,
know if
no,
I did, but
totally.
that's fine.
Totally. No, I think that's one of the things that we talk about a lot. Like in the way that I work and the language that I use is like our soul is constantly trying to remind us of that truth, that like conviction of
Mm,
like the way that we are meant to be in the world is, like you said, completely unique. That's one of the things I love about all these different modalities like human design that show that you are meant to be a differentiated expression of life force energy, of God, of like universal flow, whatever you want to call it. But that's the part of us that is the driving force that wakes us up when we're like, oh, you know what? This corporate job isn't it? Or, oh, you know what? This relationship isn't it? That's the part as kids where we're like, this isn't it. But everybody else is believing it because they've forgotten their truth, their soul, and have adopted this like mental playing field of like, if we live through our minds, if we plan everything, if everything makes logical sense, then we can operate to a certain degree. But we'll always be missing that sense of fulfillment. We'll always be kind of bypassing that deeper knowing or that deeper truth within us that is like, this is the way we're supposed to go, or this is the thing that feels more alive, or this is, like you said, that playful energy. That is our soul constantly trying to move through us and remind us this is meant to be an experience where we create, where we like observe and create,
mm-hmm.
respond, and use everything in the physical plane to make manifest or to bring forward all of the desires that are in our hearts. So I love that it's a different way of describing the same thing of like
Mm-hmm.
having deep soul connection that moves you through life. And I think it's such a powerful way to live. I also think, as you said, like that connection that you have with yourself extends in all things, job, relationship, all of those things. So I'm curious because you are a relationship mentor and you
Mm-hmm.
have wisdom around relationships, you're an expert in that field. I find with the people that I talk to that are in a type of personal development or spiritual development or relationship development work, there's been a moment, like a sort of pivotal moment in your life where you realize like there's a different way to do relationships and I need to figure this out. So I often call it your oh shit moment where you're like, oh shit, like this is not working anymore. Something is about to change here and I have an opportunity for a new way of life. I'm curious for you in the realm of relationships, what was that oh shit moment? Did you have an oh shit moment? Have you had multiple oh shit moments? I think as we all do. But is there one that you can kind of pinpoint back to that really helped to reorient you to this new paradigm of relationships that you teach?
What's interesting is that most people look at different things in your life as things. So I have my wealth, I've got my relationships, I've got my home, I've got all these things. When I quit my corporate job, that was also the time when one of my largest relationships ended as well. And it was kind of this conglomerate of I have I had the picture of what it all is supposed to look like. I had the house, the car, the job, the man, the dogs. Like I had all of it. You know, the American dream, the Canadian dream, the Europe, the world dream. It doesn't matter what it is. I had it all, but I was completely dead inside. And I was tired and I was burnt out. And this was 14 years ago. And I couldn't do it. There was no amount of money that you could pay me to live that way. I knew that if I continued living that way, I would just be an absolute death eater of a human being. And my soul and my love is so much greater than that. So when I decided to quit my corporate job, so my relationship to money shifted then. My relationship to how I perceived I needed to be changed then. With my relationship, it wasn't fueling me. In fact, I was carrying everything. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do this anymore. And I thought to myself, okay, what can I do here? I mean, I can stay. That's an option. Yeah, I can stay. I can continue to work. I can work until I get my pension. Like I can stay in this relationship. It's stable. You know, I have the things. It's maybe not satisfying. Like there were so many things that were comfortable about remaining there, but that's not what life's about.
Mm-hmm.
And I vowed when I left both of those things, I vowed to myself that I would only ever do, feel, say, touch, be with, create things that I love, period. Um, so from that moment on, I vowed to love everything I saw, touched, spoke, created, like poured myself into. And for me, love has been the theme, I would say, of my entire life. So if you want to talk about an aha moment, this is from birth. This is something that I believe ancestrally and lineage oriented. That piece of worthiness and loved and being loving was where it all started. So like at birth. But since then, what has happened is that everything I've done from that point forward has been done with such fullness, with such yes, with such a conviction to continually love in deeper, better, bigger ways, that because I've danced in so many areas of life on the contrast, like the extreme contrast, my ability to be precise and offer really fine-tuned details to transform the way people see and experience and input love into their life, whether it be in their relationships or their business or their life, or even just the way they experience themselves. That's where that came from. It was just a very firm declaration, and it changed my life, but it also gave me a clarity in how I serve other people.
Mm-hmm. I love that so
Mhm.
much. That's one of the things that we like really resonate. We both have that same like moment in mine was in the kitchen. Yours, I don't know if you were in the kitchen or not, but we were just like, I cannot do this anymore. It's like this
Mhm.
I'm done moment where it's like not for another second. You can try to imagine what it would be like if you just stuffed down that feeling that's saying like, I can't anymore. And it's like, I would die. Like there's no other option on the other
Mm-hmm.
side of that. And truly it's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's an ego death and it's a soul awakening. It's like all of this stuff at once, but it's a powerful moment where you get to really take ownership and reclaim the parts of you that have maybe kind of splintered off over the course of life and bring that back and say, okay, no more. I'm going to do things a different way. And I think it's when we have those moments that we're truly able to step into who we came here to be, like our purpose, our mission. I say all the time to my clients, I'm like, the mess is the message. Once you're on the other side of it, like the pain
Mm-hmm.
creates purpose. Like the things that you go through in your life may seem like incredibly challenging. You may be like, why does this happen to me? But they are serving your, like they're sculpting your soul. That contrast is showing you your power through it, but it's also showing you the light on the other side. Like once you walk yourself through it,
Mm-hmm.
and you've been walking this path for like 14 years, like doing your own work of like reorienting your relational blueprint, because neither one of us, you and I, didn't have the best blueprints to operate from. So it was like a learning path that required us to really kind of do some of that deeper work.
Yes.
I'm curious for you, when you work with your clients, what do you notice is like the most common relationship challenge that they come to you with? And I know that you work on a multiple of levels, whether it's like to their work or to their finances or in their love life. What do you think is like is there a core relational issue that you can spot in your clients?
Yes. So I would say that very few people have a strong sense of self or a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with self. And because of that, what happens is then our external precursors become the driver for why we do things. So more often than not, when people are struggling in relationship or they haven't developed basic skills like communication, conflict resolution, understanding your own contribution to relationships and how you might actually be the culprit for a lot of the disdain or pleasure that you might experience in relationships. It doesn't really matter what side it is. It's your operating system. So I think the most common thing is that people don't know who they are. And when you're disconnected, then the outer world becomes your idol. You know, the
Mm-hmm.
money becomes an idol, the way you look, how you present, who is in your circle, who isn't in your circle, what you wear, those things become your identity when it's actually the other way around. We
Mm-hmm.
don't need any of that stuff technically. Technically, that stuff does not define our worth. Our ability to see both human, like who we are as people, flawed inherently, and then the beauty of God or the universe or whatever you call it. It's in you and it's perfect,
Mm-hmm.
but few people can really have a relationship with that. And
Mm-hmm.
so when they come to me, it's usually they're in a sea of confusion. They're in a relationship that really isn't working for them and they don't know how to find their way out, or they are desperately seeking a relationship and trying to fit everybody that they have even a glimmer of potential with into a box that everybody says that's what it should look like.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody truthfully is missing out on real life in that. So
Mm-hmm.
when they achieve the things, or they change the identity, or they change the address, or they feel like they're getting somewhere, if that connection has not been discovered, and then the relationship continuing to build, because this is a lifetime thing, your desires and your goals and your dreams, they change as you move and evolve through life. But if that connection is lost, eventually it loses its limerence.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
people are left questioning, like, what do I do here? What's wrong with me? Why can't I achieve this? So in that sea of confusion, it's like they've stopped looking at their external world as a data set point for where they are and being able to accept that. But more importantly, when they don't know themselves, the external world is the only thing that matters.
Yeah,
So it's
totally.
we got to flip it.
Yeah,
We got to
totally.
flip the
Flip
lens.
the script. Flip the
Yeah,
script. Absolutely.
exactly.
And kind of brings us back to
Exactly.
like what we were talking about at the beginning. Like true freedom is like that allowing your true self to like really be what moves you through the world. But I find the same thing with my clients too. They'll come, they're like, incredibly wise, intelligent, powerful women, especially who
Beautiful.
are
Yeah. All,
ambitious, high achieving, have like the checkbox like that we both had, where I have the house, I have the husband, I have the dogs, I have the cars and all
yeah.
of that stuff. And they're like, but I feel stuck, or I feel lost, or I feel empty, or I feel unsatisfied. And they think there's something wrong with them. They think that maybe I need to work harder, or maybe I need to do more, or maybe I need to like try something else. And truly, it is like coming back to that relationship with self. And also understanding too that the jump between like good and great can be one of the hardest to make, because once you have the checklist and you're like, I mean, I don't really have anything to complain about technically. Like I have all of these
Mm,
things. How
mm-hmm.
do I let go of what I know for something that I don't know? And I think that's often the question that comes up when it's like, I've built my entire life on the illusion of who I was, on who I thought I was, or who I was told to
You
be, or
built
who
a
I thought I
castle
needed to
on
be.
sand, baby. You built a
Exactly.
castle
And
on
then it's like,
sand.
well, what do I do with the castle? What do I do with the sand? And I'm afraid of losing everything. So, what would you say to somebody? I know both you and I have been in that situation where it's like, here's my castle, it's on sand, and the sand is like crumbling because I can't keep doing this. I can't keep holding up the
Mm-hmm.
foundation of this house that I've built. And
Yes.
it's challenging to have to reorient yourself to a new way of life. So what would you say to somebody who is like in something, whether it's their career or their relationship or whatever else, that they're like, this isn't it? What would you say to somebody who's going through that?
Well, I mean, context is important. I think this is why we're all individuals. I think this is why most of what exists on the internet isn't really helpful, because it doesn't give you clarity in your own experience. So
Mm-hmm.
clarity is king. That's kind of what I say to people. And when you're working with a coach or a mentor, it's hard to sometimes see it when you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to take that first step, because the irony is, when we come back to taking from, where you were as a child and where you are as an adult, and it's also backwards, is as a child, we're kind of fearless in our pursuit. Like, we don't care if we fall down and scrape our knees 600 times, or if we eat dirt, it doesn't matter. We'll do it anyways. But as an adult, there's this pride, and there's this, again, persona, identity that we have to live into, that the fear is what's crippling. So when people are like, I don't even know where to start, the first thing is accepting your reality currently. Like, and to see it for what it is, not for what you think it can be, or what you're manifesting, or where you trying to quantum leap to. Like, if you're not even able to give yourself a second of presence to just acknowledge that maybe shit's hitting the fan, or it's not where you want to be, and to just have a moment of realness with you, that's the biggest point of connection that you can possibly offer yourself. But then you have to look at where you are and go, is this really where I want to be? I mean, I know I did that when I had that moment. I do that frequently in my life now.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not where you want to be, then you have to cultivate a relationship and integrity and trust with yourself to take steps that are uncomfortable. So if I'm in a life that I don't like, or if I'm in a relationship that I don't like and it's tremendously uncomfortable, well, guess what? What's the alternative? Either you stay miserable and uncomfortable in a relationship you don't like, or you get uncomfortable operating in a way you've never been before.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be discomfort in that. But what I always say, what's the alternative? So when I quit my job, that was terrifying. When you have this nice paycheck coming in and the benefits and the pension, you're like, I'm pretty, I'm sitting pretty. And then you're like, you know what? I don't like this. I don't even have a plan. My backup plan was real estate and some investments that I bought. But I said to myself, what is the worst case scenario here? I have to get a job. So in relationships, if nothing is working, it's you. It's you. It's you. You have to start by getting clear about your contribution, the actual picture. So with women specifically, this is no shade. We've all done it at some point in our life. Man, we love to fantasize about relationships. Man, we love to hold the potential over the reality. But every woman that I've ever worked with who has been able to accept reality has changed exponentially from it, just through the
Mm-hmm.
acknowledgement. So if
Mm-hmm.
you can do that, you're 15 million times ahead than many people who would just rather say, but maybe one day he'll give me a ring. It doesn't work.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that idea of radical honesty, I think, is so important, and it's so easy to buy our own bullshit sometimes and be like, oh well, when I do this or when this happens or when that, like pushing sort of the uncomfortable things off into the future, hoping that they'll change if we just, like I said, do more or work harder. So that's one of the first things that I totally agree. Like you have to like just come to the awareness and the acknowledgement of where you are. And then you have to admit to yourself, is this what I want or is this not what I want? And then when you admit to yourself, that's when you get to actually start making change. And I love what you said, like in a relationship, it's you. Like it's you. Like what part can you take assumption for? And I know some people will be like, that's kind of like shaming people or it's like putting pressure on them, but it truly does put the responsibility on you. And the way that I define responsibility is your ability to respond. If there is a part of
Mhm.
you that is interacting in this relationship and it's on you, you get to decide, what do I do with this information now? And it's not like I wait until he changes or I wait until something else happens or blah, 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 whatever it is. Can you take that ownership and say, what do I need to do for me? Because this is my life and I'm the only person that can live it. Is this in alignment? Is this really what I desire? And if it's not, what's the next step to take? Like
Mhm.
if it's clear to you, then take that next step. And if it's not clear to you, then reach out for support or get some help or get like a different perspective. But make sure that the perspective that you're taking is from somebody who's either done what you're wanting to do or somebody who is like a couple of steps ahead of you in it. I think
Yes.
oftentimes, like as girls, as women, we ask our girlfriends like to interpret text messages or like, what do you think he's trying to say? Or what would you do? And unless those people have like something that you desire for yourself, it can be to your detriment to kind of like talk about it and like all kind of try to decipher things or come up with solutions. So for you, when you were experiencing all of these shifts and you were like, okay, it's not the corporate job, it's not this relationship, what was that experience like for you to come into alignment on the other side of that, to find like what you were actually passionate and sort of purposeful about, or relationships that felt more aligned to you? What was it like?
So this is how I've always lived my life, and it has never made sense to most people, but I am a big fan of following your footsteps. Sometimes you don't have the whole picture. In fact, most times you don't
Mm-hmm.
have the whole picture. And actually, life is a lot more fun when it's not strategically planned out to a T.
Mm-hmm.
I have always lived in a way that I call it the top down, like God down,
Mm-hmm.
because if I moved somewhere and I feel like I want to play in that particular area, I will start with nothing. So when I quit my job, my sister was in the influencing space and she said, "Hey, you should try this." And I'm like, I think you'd be good at it. I'm like, I don't know, like, let's see. So this was at the start of Instagram, and I didn't have any skills being in front of the camera. I didn't like myself in front of the camera. I didn't know how to use a camera. Like, there were lots of things. There were learning curves on learning curves on learning curves. But as I started to move, things started to unfold and I started
Mm-hmm.
to get better at things. I started to get comfortable in front of the camera and I started to get comfortable, you know, pitching things. And I started to get comfortable taking pictures of other people. And I started to get comfortable getting creative, and like it just snowballed from there. But what I've realized over the course of my life is where a lot of people are terrified to change something, I don't struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
So following your footsteps. So when you're taking a leap into an unknown, and this is why most people are terrified to do it, because you don't know what's coming next. For some reason, we're at a day and age where everybody wants the answers now, where everybody wants the end result now, but you miss everything along the way. Like, I am convinced that me heading into that space had nothing to do with me being an influencer. When you talked about you're being shaped, I call it molding. I feel like everything that I did in that period of time was to give me confidence in front of the camera. was to allow for me to speak to people in this way, was to make me okay with being visible, was to give me experiences I had never had in my life so that I could be who I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Amen. I
think,
love that. Yeah.
yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times, in the manifestation community specifically, it's like this element of control that is almost like neurotic, but
Mm-hmm.
where you're meant to be and who you are is going to naturally unfold if you get out of the way. And this is the childlike component and the conviction that I was speaking to. It really is that combination of, if it's coming through you and it's not an externally fed desire,
Mm-hmm.
it's an internally sourced desire, they are different,
Mm-hmm.
then it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I love that so much. I call it listening for the whispers. Like, you
Right.
don't know like the exact steps to take, but when you listen for the whispers, it's like a little breadcrumb here, a little breadcrumb here. And to
Yeah.
that point of like just kind of following this path that is the adventure of life. Like
Yes.
having it all planned out, like my 5-year plan, and then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. That's not really living. That's like following a script, that's following a plan. But life, living, is like the exploration and the becoming. And same as you, like when I look back to the moment I realized this marriage, this religion, this house, this life was not it for me, and it was time to start creating something else. Again, you're kind of like starting at level zero and coming
Mm-hmm.
into that relationship with yourself so you can hear your intuition, you can feel and sense in your body how it's guiding you, how your soul is moving you towards what is next. It's a skill that requires you to hone it, and it's not going to look like the traditional linear path that everybody else is following. And that's exactly how you know that it is your path, because it is for you. It is like you and the universe, you and God creating this path. And when I look back, I'm like, okay, I started with yoga. That was really important for like the spirituality, the energetics. The first business that I started was
Mm-hmm.
making mala beads, and it was all about like energy and manifestation and like how we have power to create. And then I took a pivot and became a spin instructor. And it can look like, where was I going with that? I have no idea. I mean, I loved spin and I loved yoga, so it kind of made sense. But
Yeah.
when I look back, I'm like, that cleared my throat chakra in a way that
Ah,
teaching yoga gently wasn't able to do. You're on a bike, you are in the dark, you are yelling over music, and you are shouting at people who do not like you
yes.
to push them. So all of these moments that seem like this doesn't really make sense. I don't know why I'm being called to do it. There's something in there for us. And to that point of what you said, like if it is a soul desire, I separate them between soul desires and ego desires. Like the thing that's coming from inside, and you're like, I don't know why I want this, but I want this, versus they have that, I should have that too, as an ego desire. They will come to fruition in the most magical ways. And
Yes.
I'm leading into 40 days of devotion. Actually, by the time this podcast plays, we'll be in the program, but anybody can still join. But when I'm thinking back to doing that devotional practice to really like amplify my intuition, I remember coming to LA on an intuitive hit, just messaging one of my girlfriends. I'm like,
Yeah.
I just broke up with this guy. Like, life is feeling kind of weird. I just need a break. And when I was there in California with her, I was like, I just have this feeling. I don't know why, but I know that I'm going to live here. Like, I feel like I'm meant to
Mm-hmm.
live in California. And as a Canadian, it's not the easiest immigration process unless you
Yes.
have somebody here or however. And it didn't make sense, but it was one of those things that I was just like, I don't know where that came from, but it came from inside and it doesn't really make sense. And to see now how everything unfolded, how I happened to meet Brock at the exact right time and how everything sort of unfolded, there are forces beyond what we can perceive with our five senses that are conspiring in our favor. That when we are courageous enough, brave enough to trust ourselves, to say, you know what, I'm going to give it up. Like,
Jesus,
I
take the wheel.
just take the
Yeah.
wheel, like let go, let
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
whatever you want
Yeah.
to say. But like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
when you're like, I'm at like a point where I've tried to figure it all out on my own, and I've painted myself into a room I don't want to be in anymore. So I need something else to come in. That's when your soul is like, excellent. and then it'll start
Finally,
whispering to you. Yeah, it's like,
finally, yes, yes.
go here, try this, do this. Like your sister mentioning becoming an influencer. Maybe that wasn't something you ever thought of, but the impulse to do it led to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So like you were saying, it is like a more powerful way to live, but it requires you to be like anchored in yourself to be able to
Yes.
create exactly what it is you desire, not through the manipulation of like forces, but through just having your energy open to following those breadcrumbs, those nudges, and allowing life to unfold instead of trying to control it.
Yeah. So I would say I've traveled far and wide and deep in a whole variety of spiritual modalities, and I will always say that if it's not leading you to more ease, the life you want, more inner peace, then you're resisting yourself. You are doing far too much for what is organically innate within you. And for me, it's a relationship with God. You know, if I think about God, the omnipresent substance of everything, if that's the relationship that's inside of me, then what the heck do I know? You know, when I think of my human component, which is everything I've learned, been socially conditioned, my emotions, a lot of my imagination or fantasies, all of these things come from worldly external systems outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I've invested energy into that, it's never worked for me. So it's not to say that it doesn't work, because I have created in that fashion. That
Mm-hmm.
was my job that I left, my relationship that I left 13 years ago. Like, that was me taking out my own work and saying, well, I'm supposed to have this big job and I'm supposed to do, so I'm going to go and do it. And at the end of it, I was exhausted. So
Yeah.
for me, if I think of the true power that resides within me, it's as natural as breathing. And that's the part where I think a lot of people are still overworking. They're
Mm-hmm.
still efforting. They're still worshiping their emotions and trying to fix those. Or they're still trying to do this or create a new identity here, do this. It's all, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm saying that it's, maybe this will be controversial, it's not necessary. As
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of headed into this new space, I feel like it's more of just like, how do we let these constructs go so
Mm-hmm.
that what is natural for us comes to the surface, for our voice comes to the surface? It's just everything else is in the way. So when you're
Totally.
talking about your devotional practice, I know we've talked about it before, like part of it is silencing
Mm-hmm.
everything that's occurring,
Yeah. So you can
including at
hear.
times what you think. And there is
Yeah.
a difference between what you think you should be doing and what actually is.
Mm-hmm.
But this is to me what it meant to mature and to
Mm-hmm.
be an adult, like the true form, not the inverted form, where you have that understanding because you sense it, you feel it, you know it, you have a relationship with it. And it's easier.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It
easier.
is. It's
Yeah.
easier, but it's like the hardest thing because that's how the world
Yes.
operates.
Yes.
Everybody else is like, no, 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 it's
Yes.
all in your head. You got to logic your way through it. But I think it's
Yes.
Charles Bukowski that has that beautiful quote that's like, can you remember who you were before the world told you who to be? So it's like the
Yeah.
stripping away of like the masks and the roles and the who, blah, 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 all of the things that we make up just so that we can feel ourselves in our heart, in our soul, in our true self. And I think that's the whole point of living free, to be that and let that create. It will create beyond your wildest dreams. I know that has been my experience. That's the experience of
Hmm.
my clients when they get to this place of like, I'm going to trust myself, my deep self, not my anxieties or not my fears. I'm going
Yes.
to trust my
Yes.
truth and let that show me who I am. Let that show me what is meant for me. So the unbecoming, I think, is a really powerful place where we can like kind of peel away all of the things and just like
Hmm.
be with the truth of our being, which is so beautiful. Like honestly, there's no like, now that I've come back to this place of living from there
Come
and
back.
like yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, wow, where did I go and why did I buy into all of that bullshit when this was here the whole time? So it really
uh,
is this beautiful way of being. So I'm curious for you now, What are you most excited about in your life? What are you working on? I mean, those can be two separate questions, but as we're heading to the end, like what's feeling alive and exciting for you right now?
I've done so much in my life to this point and navigated in so many different areas, and there's been some good, there's been some things that I'm not particularly proud of, and I'm at a pocket in my life where, like you said, I'm remembering who I am, and not who I wanted to be and who I thought I should be and where I thought I should be by now, but who I actually am. And as I'm starting to feel that woman be be um it's exciting because, like you said, the magic of life that happens from that place is uncharted to some extent. Like I have a new man in my life that I just absolutely adore. But one of the things I will say is that there were points in my life where, you would, and I think a lot of women say this too, like, do great men even exist, sort of thing. And as I started to like move in accordance with that, then this man appeared out of nowhere. Like, it's ridiculous, but I feel like I could never have dreamed up this human being. Even with all the listing and the manifestation, I could never have even touched it with a 10-foot pole. So the way that I'm feeling into the next phase of my life is that it doesn't have to be this thick, arduous life. And that the more I can let go and let God, like, for real, not something you fake to get something, like
Yeah.
for real. To me, I feel like the next phase of my life is just going to be pure magic, because
Hmm.
there's a lightness in who I am and how I'm feeling. And just, I don't need to know. I have an idea. Like, I know that, my work will be more prevalent and that I was always destined for great love and a great life. That's been my whole mantra since birth. So for the first time in a long time, I actually don't want to be in control. And I'm really excited about that.
Ooh, I love that so much.
Hmm.
What's that? I think it's Joseph Spenda that says, like, in the unknown is where everything is possible. And the deeper you can go into the unknown, the more you can create from that place. Like, so it
Hmm.
truly is like this life beyond your wildest dreams, because your human mind can only come up with so much, but your soul has a plan. Like, God, the universe, source has a plan that is just here to reflect how incredibly magical you are if you let yourself be just that. So I love
Yes.
that you're remembering that part of yourself, that being, and being that, letting it be fully expressed. I love that so much. And I've
Yeah.
loved to have like a little bit of behind the scenes of like this
Of
beautiful
course.
unfolding
Oh,
of your love life, but of your life
yeah.
as well.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
just been so incredible to see. And I know that the work you do with your clients allows them to experience that for themselves as well. So
Yes.
that's so, so beautiful. So I keep wanting to say Jayla because Jayla Loves
I
is your
mean, you can
Instagram
call me
handle.
Jayla.
And I
Jayla
call
loves
you
is
that
my
just
name.
because I love you. So Jayla, Jennifer,
Jayla.
Jen,
Yes.
where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Jayla Loves. You can find me on Facebook. Sorry, TikTok is also Jayla Loves. Facebook's Jennifer Hallett. And then, of course, for all my products and services, it's jenniferhallett.com. Um, I like to make love in this world. That's really what it's about. I like to connect people to that. And I know you have this experience with your clients too. There's nothing better than seeing people light up. And that just
Mm,
means that the death that has overcome them no longer exists, and they actually are just, oh, it brings me joy to just see people come alive. So
the deepest
yeah,
joy. I love that
it
so
is. It's
much.
so good. Hmm.
Jayla, Jen, love you. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Oh, thank you
Thank you
for
for
having
being
me.
here. Of course, my
Yes, of
absolute
course.
pleasure. And
Hmm.
to everybody watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast platform, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Live Free Lifestyle podcast. I would love to know your takeaways if this conversation resonated with you, or you know somebody that could definitely use a little bit of the medicine of this episode. Please go ahead and share it with them. Leave a review, leave your comments, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.